You know, they're always so quick in the media to blame the conservatives, blame Tea Party, blame the lawful gun owners of America for things like this. But yet, when it comes to radical Islam and people who've been radicalized, then all of a sudden we have to tiptoe around it. I mean, the FBI recently came out and admitted that in the Fort Hood shooter example, that they were overly sensitive to the political correctness of that case.
And they called it workplace violence.
Yeah,
I read the after-action report.
It's
the
right.
after-action report refers to some guy who's upset, who shoots a bunch of people. There's no talk about what he was yelling as he was shooting.
That's right.
There's no talk about the ideology, the reaching
emails,
out to...
and his emails to al-Awlaki, who we thankfully killed recently. There was none of that until much, much further investigation and people dug into it. Oh, then, okay, well, maybe he was a radical Islam. So the double standard is really, really obnoxious.
But do you think in this case, because we haven't heard, or not yet, knock on wood, we haven't heard blaming the right or the Tea Party for the tragedy at the temple yesterday, that there might be a new maturity, that maybe Brian Ross at ABC News, when he rushed...
They got their hands burned. I don't think they're mature. I think they realize that if you come out and you say something with no justification of the facts whatsoever, and you call yourself a news organization, you can't Google John Smith Tea Party and say, well, there's a guy, or whatever the name was, Jim Holmes in this case. You can't Google these things and then use that as your backup.
So Brian Ross really ruined it for cable TV.
No, I think he's changed the game for cable TV for a few weeks. It's been so near that they wouldn't be able to say that, oh, this was a mistake that we couldn't have seen coming. They'd have to at least pretend like they learned something from the Brian Ross
incident. Do you think this is the... Now, at the table, I was going to throw this out after we went around. Ben, you can answer this one. Do you think this is the end? Do you think this is the end of this knee-jerk reaction? That have they learned their lesson?
Of course it isn't the end. It's just a momentary pause. But I think that there's something else here that I think factors into this one that may not have factored into some of the other situations, and that's this guy used a handgun. And the fact is that as strong as people are in favor of gun control across the country, nobody really believes that there's any sentiment in favor of banning, 9mm handguns or something like that from the populace. What I think that we should be concerned about when we see this in the media is, not just their use of the jump to conclusion, Matt, but the fact that they examine all of these things within the framework of how can we achieve our political ends? Because they're not acting like media organizations.
Well,
they're acting like people who have ideology.
We've got some sound here. I've got two clips to play for the table. This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg reacting to the Times Square bombing that never happened.
If I had to guess 25 cents, this would be exactly that. Somebody who's homegrown, maybe a mentally deranged person, or somebody with a political agenda that doesn't like the health care bill or something.
The mayor, wait, we got one more. That's the mayor of New York without any fact proof, nothing to lend itself to that. And here we have Arizona State Senator Linda Lopez blaming the Tea Party after the Gabrielle Giffords shooting.
There's been so much vitriol flung at her by the Tea Party people. Her opponent was in the election was a Tea Party candidate, and the signs that were up around town accusing her of horrible things.
We were talking about this show about why the immediate rush to politicize these tragedies. And I think it's in human nature that we want to understand the monster. And in literature, you had, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and it was a potion and trying to steal science. But it seems that in the modern era, in the 21st century, the monster is right-wing politics. It can take a normal person and distort them and corrupt them and turn them into a murderous, a murderer.
The lesson is that the monster is not right-wing politics. It's that they wish it would be. They keep looking, they keep trying to transpose that onto the reality.
I guess my question is, when did the media have such a lack of moral imagination in terms of what drives human beings to do terrible things?
They never had it. They just started getting caught.
Yeah.
They just started getting caught. That's what it is.
For a hammer, everything's a nail. For the media, every tragedy can be explained by this one particular thing. Do our reporters not go to college? Do they not learn about human beings? Do they not go to church? Do they not have other lenses through which to see the world?
But we have seen this. We've said this at the table, Tara, and Buck can join me on this one, that when we look at foreign affairs, we tend to look at something happening in another country and try to nail it through. We try to ram a square peg through a round hole. So they're rioting in the streets because they want They want the freedom of speech, or they want women's rights. It's like when Forrest Gump started running, and the reporter's like, "Are you running to save the whales?" And no, sometimes
some of these countries they want women's oppression.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
And the politicians and the media types tend to do the same thing. They've already decided what is the rot in our society. Now they just wait for an event to blame on it.